Have you ever woken up after a night's sleep and you feel completely exhausted? I've been there many, many times. And today we're going to talk a little bit about maybe why that might happen and more importantly, what to do about it.
Hey everyone, this is Aaron and Juwan, and you're listening to Wellness for Real People. This show is for people who are on the go, busy, and looking for ways to live their best lives. We focus on wellness topics in mindfulness, exercise, diet, and sleep, and share quick, actionable tactics to improve your health and wellness. We're not perfect, but we're trying to get a little better each day. Let's grow on this journey together.
We're back with another episode of Wellness for Real People. My name's Juwan, here with my co host Aaron. And today we're talking about a very interesting article from the American Psychological Association. And it's titled Seven Types of Rest to Help Restore Your Body's Energy. And I thought this was a very interesting subject matter because it dives way, way deeper than just sleep as it relates to, what does it take for your body to fully recover and repair. And we're going to talk about some of the very specific things and get into some of our own experiences and stories about that. But before we dive into, all the details, Aaron, what stood out to you as you were kind of reading through the article initially?
I think it's just the basics of it. Like rest in general, I always thought and defaulted to sleep as being like the way you get rest. And so this article I saw when I was doing my research really opened my eyes that there's a lot more going on that attributes to this. And so excited to dive into this with you and then talk a little bit more, share some personal stories as well too, but just excited to like share something new in the mindfulness space. You know, we've talked a lot about other topics in the past around mindful eating, just mindfulness in terms of meditation, but this is something a little bit different that we haven't discussed before.
Absolutely. And to your point around thinking deeper than just sleep, Sandra Dalton Smith, MD, and author, has a great quote in this article. She says, we've incorrectly combined the concepts of sleep and rest. And in doing so, we have dumbed it down rest to the point where it appears ineffective. She explains that the result is a culture of high achieving, high producing, chronically tired, burnt out individuals. And that
Man,
last part really, really hit home. Yeah.
it describes it so well.
Yeah, man.
Yes. Yes. Oh man.
I feel
Yeah.
attacked. I feel attacked and hurt at the
That hit
same
home.
time.
That hit home.
So Dalton Smith describes, seven essential types of rest required to address this rest deficit that tends to pervade American culture. So this is about preventing fatigue and burnout, but also just improving our resilience so that we can be more adaptable to the daily challenges. Uh, so let's talk about some of these kind of seven types of rest, and maybe you see some of uh, yourself in some of these examples and situations, and get some helpful, ideas or tips or tactics to support you in your restfulness journey. So the first type of rest mentioned in the article was physical rest, and that's just what it sounds like. It's restoring your body's energy. So this can be prioritizing sleep or taking a nap when you need one. But it doesn't always have to be just sitting still, like as you mentioned meditation a little bit earlier. Sometimes that may mean getting a massage, right, to get rid of some of that tension in your muscles after a stressful week or doing a very intense workout.
Yeah, my
Um,
wife talks about that all the time. She does it regularly, and I never understood it. Like, I obviously I'm not getting massages, so I'm like not getting the physical rest. But when I read this, it resonated with me because I'd say she's always getting those, and like just like afterwards, she just seems so much more relaxed and so much more energized and ready to take on whatever's next. So I saw that in this article, and I was like, oh, okay, something I need to think about. Because I didn't think that was a component of physical rest. I just thought it was like, oh yeah, just making your muscles feel better. But it's way more than that.
Yeah, yeah, great, great, great point, great example. The next piece, which I think most of us might be somewhat aware of, is this idea of mental rest. If we keep our brain running on 100% at all times, then it's natural that we begin to feel drained. And so, mental rest is about finding ways to quiet your thoughts, give your brain a chance to refuel, to recharge. And, for me personally, that looks like one day a week, I absolutely do not turn on any work device whatsoever, computer, laptop, my phone. I'm as it relates to like anything related to work. So I'm not checking any emails. I'm not doing any work. I just shut everything completely off for one day a week, just to try to give my brain a little bit of time to rest and recharge. But in the short term, and then I think in the long term, I tend to get great mental rest when it comes to like going on vacation, right? Like
Yeah.
after I go on a vacation and I'm like away from my normal environment for a couple of days, it's like my mind just like starts going, it starts zooming again, and I'm like starting thinking of all these great creative ideas, and I just have much more energy, because I'm outside of that, using that normal capacity in my mind, thinking about all the day
Right.
to day things that I need to get done. So those are some examples that come to mind personally around mental rest.
Yeah, and then the author also mentions offloading some of your thoughts into a notebook. Doesn't have to be like physical writing, but like whatever that looks like for you. Just getting some of those thoughts out of your head to somewhere else. That way, it kind of gives you that like impression of you've kind of offloaded that work and gives your mind a chance to slow down. I think that's benefited me a lot. It's like one of the things I still do is like, despite having like, you can't see my setup, I got like 4 or 5 screens here. I still have a physical notebook where I'm jotting down things because it helps me to kind of like offload all of that stuff into like whatever I need to do tomorrow. And that way, at the end of the day, I'm like, I feel so much better. So that really resonated me with as well. And then, like you said, turning off the phone is a big thing in terms of even just shutting off notifications, right? Like when you go on vacation or whatever, if you leave your Slack or whatever tool you have on, you're going to get sucked back into it because you
Hmm.
get that little alert, man. It's like, I don't know what it is. That little sound that comes on and it clicks and you're like, oh, what is this? And then all of a sudden you're sucked right back into it. So it really is beneficial to like figure out however you can to shut that off.
Absolutely. Are you gonna take us to the next couple ones?
Sure. Yeah. So the next one that they bring up is emotional rest. So this one's a little bit different. So I think a lot of us feel this, but it's the emotional labor, right? It can feel like a depleting experience. It's like trying to be strong, trying to hold it all together, trying to make sure that you're on top of things is really difficult. And that takes an emotional toll on you over time, whether you're acknowledging it or not. I felt that way a lot where I just feel like I need to do it all or I need to do everything. And the article really recommends figuring out a way to just say no emotionally to those intense activities, whether that's work or with a friend or whatever that looks like in your personal life, of kind of like those stressful, demanding moments, to try to just step away and distance yourself as much as possible from those moments. And it's hard because we know we've got a lot of responsibilities, and especially as we get older in life, there's a lot going on. But it's very critical, as the article mentions, to like figure out how to distance yourself from those so you can kind of reset emotionally. It's something that I need to work on a lot personally, but made me aware that it can definitely be a depleting experience to feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders and to not step away from that moment. And being stuck in it.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a great point. And one of the other tips they brought up was around just like when you're feeling like that, or you got too much on your shoulders. How do you mention either offloading some of that by stepping away, but or also just talking to somebody to
Yeah.
help you kind of process through that, right? And that's where I think a lot of times, having get a therapy, going through therapy, talking with a therapist, or somebody trained who can help support you and just managing those emotions and talking through some of those feelings and emotions can be really powerful and really helpful. So you're not really just holding on to it, all these things all the time. You can kind of get some of that out. I think it'd be really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. And this next one really kind of hits home for me, social rest. And so I self identify as an introvert, even though my job requires me to be very extroverted. But this one says not only introverts need social rest, which I thought is really interesting because as an introverted person, I always just assume like, oh, that gets people ready to go and fueled up. But actually, being around people all the time means being on all the time. And by on, it means you're in the moment, you're this persona or you're this personality, or you're just supposed to be portraying something, whatever that means to you. And it can be very draining. And so they recommend during the week, spend some time alone to try to recharge. As with emotional rest, you may even want to set boundaries or limit times with the amount of time you spend with people and social interactions, because it can feel like you're just always in this moment all the time, all the time, all the time. So it's important to focus on relationships that feel supporting and meaningful as well. So some of those social relationships might not be as healthy. Personal, you have to reevaluate that for yourself, but something to consider as we talk about different types of rest.
Yeah, yeah. The next piece, what I thought was interesting, was sensory rest. And this was fascinating to me because I never really thought about it in this context, but
Mm.
I think it's
Hmm.
really really important that we call this out, right? It talks about, this world that we live in, it can be loud and we're just constantly exposed to technology and just so many different stimuli on any given day. And it can overwhelm our senses, right? We use the term, I just feel what's the word? I'm losing it right now. Overstimulated. That's it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
quite often. And so I think it's important to think about that from time to time and give yourself and your body, your mind, a reset, if you will, a tech break. Log off the screens, go outside in nature for a walk, right? Or
And a
go.
walk without headphones, which is even
Mhm.
harder to do. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that could be really really powerful for just, yeah, helping the mind and the body and the nervous system just to reset, because we're just bombarded with so many different things, and it could take its toll over time. It's kind of like death by a thousand paper cuts kinds of thing, where you just don't notice it until you're completely fried and burnt out, and it's just like, how did I get here? So just keeping an eye on that and being aware of that, I think, could be really really helpful. um, Somewhat related is this idea of creative rest, right? So if you have
Oh,
a
yeah.
job that
Yeah.
requires a lot of creativity, brainstorming, problem solving, you may need some time for some creative rest. So giving your brain a little bit of a break from those demands. And that also may look like, just again, stepping away for a little bit, going analog for a little while, not working on any specific projects. But it can also look like putting that creativity into something more low risk, just fun, a hobby, right?
Hmm.
Learning a new recipe, or writing, or baking, or painting. Things like engaging with other creative people or works of art. So go to a museum, or a beautiful lakeside or ocean view. Those things can maybe help generate more creativity, or bring some of that excitement and energy and ideas back, if you're feeling a little bit down and drained. So I thought that was a really interesting aspect of rest as well.
Yeah. And then the last one we'll just kind of wrap up is, before we conclude, the article also talks about spiritual rest. So this might not necessarily any specific religion or anything like that, but if you have a religious or spiritual practice, whatever that looks like, rest may mean stepping back from rigid ways of thinking that cause pressure on your life. And so the article recommends rest. Spiritual rest can also mean taking a step towards what feels nourishing to you, refilling your tank by connecting to a cause that's meaningful to you, or simply taking time to enjoy the beauty of nature. But also thinking about that as well too, in just terms of whatever that looks like in your life, having some time for that, making some time for that. Or if it's too rigid and too stringent, just try to step away from that and maybe just get out in the world and enjoy kind of like what's happening around you. So a lot of different ways to rest, man. Like this one was good. I feel like we could have just talked about this one all day, but feel like I'll kick it back to you if you want to just like conclude on the last point here on reframing rest, and closing this out.
Yeah, I think it's just, this idea that you started at the top about, when we talk about reframing rest, it's more, much more than just sleep, right? The author gave us seven types of rest that we should be thinking about to help us in our day-to-day lives. And that's number one, physical rest, but also mental rest, emotional rest, social rest, sensory rest, creative rest, and spiritual rest. And so I think when you tie all these things together in a kind of more holistic view, then I think we're giving ourselves a better chance of being mindful, and trying to live a sustainable life without really burning ourselves out, and it's just being aware of these things, right? We're never going to be perfect on any of this stuff, right? But hopefully this article just gave us some new ideas, some things to be aware of. And if you start to notice, oh, I'm starting to feel a little bit down, starting to feel a little bit drained, Well, now you have some tools in your toolkit to be able to hopefully identify maybe where some of these spaces where I can, move some things around and make some adjustments and, start to take better care of ourselves. So that's really all I have. To sum up this article, really, really great article. We'll link to it in the show notes. I really enjoyed this conversation with you, Aaron, and we'll be back soon with another episode of Wellness for Real People. But in the meantime, take care.
Thanks, everybody.